Star Wars Battlefront 2 is the only operating multiplayer Star Wars game where you can play content from all three eras of the biggest movie saga on planet Earth, and that's a depressing statement in and of itself. It's been over 3 years since DICE and EA pulled the plug on post-launch content support and abandoned the popular Star Wars shooter for good. The game was left in a partially broken state and left fans wanting way more. To make matters worse, the information came out that the next update that was being made for the game before it was shut down was a content drop that would have included Ahsoka Tano, Asajj Ventress, and the planet Mustafar, even more depressing. Despite the game being abandoned by its developers, Battlefront 2 still has a relatively strong and dedicated player base. This channel was solely dedicated to making videos and live streams around Battlefront 2, and this game is the entire reason as to why I was able to develop a small community on this platform, some of who have stuck with me for a very long time. For that, I'm always appreciative of this game. Some of the best gaming times of my life were on Star Wars Battlefront 2, so it's hard for me to leave it behind and let it go. If the dweebs over at EA and Disney would just agree to make a third one, this massive void in my heart could be filled. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it's going to be the case anytime soon. So with the lack of a future regarding the Battlefront franchise, should you play Battlefront 2 in 2023? As a precursor to this conversation, I will say that I have no issue, even in the year 2023, finding populated lobbies with players to play with. I rarely spend time waiting for lobbies to fill up because it seems like there's still a large number of players on the game. Sometimes you'll see a lot of the same names pop up after a while, but there's no real issue with finding matches. Now, the first thing I'll point out about this game is that it's extremely rage-inducing.
This game fills me with an unbridled rage that I don't even think anything else has ever made me as mad as this game. Like, I literally don't think anything has ever pissed me off more than this fucking game, bro. Like, if we could accumulate a statistic of what has pissed me off the most in my life, I think Battlefront 2 is probably first.
If you're a new player without much experience, be warned. Most of the players left on this game are extremely sweaty tryhards who aren't any good at other shooter games, so they hop on Battlefront 2 to sweat and beat up on randoms in public lobbies. Due to the lack of private matches in the game, you're liable to end up in these sweaty lobbies more often than not. As a veteran player myself, I'm on a much higher level than a player who hasn't played the game much, so it's an unfair situation overall. If you know the ins and outs of the game and you know how to use everyone, you're at a major advantage, and newer players usually end up backing out of lobbies pretty quick in my experience. The Heroes vs Villains mode is probably the most fun mode in the game for me personally, but the sweatiness is absurd in the mode. You have been warned. If you're a returning player who used to play the game and you're wondering if it's worth returning to, I'd say you're much more likely to have a good time than a brand new player. For me, I tend to take long breaks from this game, and then when I come back, I end up having a blast. It's almost like muscle memory with this game. If I take a long time off and come back, it's as if I never left. I took 9 months away from playing this game and just recently came back, and I've been having a lot of fun streaming it again. Adversely to Heroes vs Villains, the Supremacy game mode is probably the most friendly when it comes to new players. You can choose between 4 base trooper classes that each have their own functions, weapons, and abilities. You earn battle points by playing the objectives and defeating enemy troopers, and then you can spend those battle points on more powerful trooper classes like jetpack troopers, special droids, vehicles, and more. If you save up enough battle points in the mode, you can even unlock the ability to play as a hero in that game, such as Anakin Skywalker, Han Solo, Darth Vader, and more. When it comes to the actual Star Wars battle experience, you can't get any better than the Supremacy. It's the total package. Easily the best simulation of a large-scale Star Wars battle. When it comes to the game and how it operates, it was never really fully fixed before the support for it was ended. Half the time, the abilities don't work the way they're supposed to in the hero modes. Lightsaber dueling is just a contest of who can block and get behind the other player to swing at their back. If you're a blaster hero and a competent saber hero gets close to you, you're probably screwed. There's certain characters in the game, like Darth Vader, who's just so much tankier and difficult to kill than the other characters. Some would say that's accurate to the lore of Star Wars, but as a multiplayer shooter game, I feel like it should be balanced better. Some of the heroes in the game aren't even worth choosing if you want to be on the same level as the players you're going against, unless you're just really good at that game or with that character and you want a challenge. When it comes to other modes in the game, I can't say I have much experience with them lately. In Battlefront's prime, game modes like Galactic Assault, Blast, and Hero Showdown were always very populated, and there was a ton of fun to be had in those modes. Nowadays, I really only play Supremacy and Heroes vs Villains, as they seem to be the most populated modes, so it's hard for me to say whether those other modes are still alive and well. When it comes to Starfighter modes like Starfighter Assault and Starfighter Hero mode, I don't anticipate you'll find games very easily over there. Star Wars Squadrons is a standalone Star Wars Starfighter multiplayer game, so I assume that the people who are interested in that type of thing are playing Squadrons instead of Battlefront. If you want a fun Star Wars experience where you don't have to go up against sweaty nerds the whole time, co-op is a great mode in Battlefront 2. You can still level up your characters and have a ton of fun against AI enemies instead of having to deal with the grease and stench of multiplayer lobbies. All in all, I feel like Battlefront 2 is still a very solid Star Wars gaming experience. If you look past the toxic, sweaty player base and the buggy, inconsistent gameplay, it's really the only game where you can play on iconic planets with iconic characters using modern-day, beautiful graphics. The Battlefront 2 player base is still strong, and lobbies are pretty easy to find. If you aren't an expert at the game, you may have trouble enjoying yourself in the hero modes due to the sweat, but there's still plenty to enjoy in other modes. I hope more and more every single day that they decide to revive this franchise, because the Star Wars community deserves a great new Star Wars Battlefront game to play. We can only sit and wait to see.
Am I always alone with the... And now I'm lagging.